Hi there, Malcolm here with my 94th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you mid-April's wrap-up. So far this year I've failed to read many graphic novels. Something happened because I've read 9 in the first half of this month, and a book. So with 10 titles to get through, I thought I'd do a mid-month wrap-up, because otherwise my end-of-month wrap-up would be humongous. So let's get cracking. First up is Star Wars Invasion Book 1 Refugees. This one sat on my shelf for a little while now, finally gotten around to read it. And this is set very early on in the Yuuzhan Vong War, where a race of extragalactic beings attempt to invade the Star Wars galaxy that we know and love. So this is very much taking place out in the deep, deep outer rim. So as this foreign plague sweeps across the galaxy, the leaders bury their heads in the sand and deny its existence, before realising far too late that they should do something about it and instead blame other people. Sounds very familiar for some reason. This story largely follows the royal Galphridian family of the planet Artonis, which is next in the crosshairs of the Yuuzhan Vong, and the mother and daughter end up getting taken prisoner. The son goes off to learn to be a Jedi with Luke, and the king is lost on the planet. However, the Princess Kay supersedes any stereotypes that the reader can make about her, and turns out to be quite the formidable prisoner, and her mother's no pushover either. I won't give away more than that, but really enjoyed seeing the depictions of the Yuuzhan Vong. I haven't read the new Jedi Order series yet, but obviously that's all in just text form. So to see the action with these force-resistant beings was very nice. Really enjoyed the story and really enjoyed the character arcs of the 4 members of the royal family. The artwork for the most part is okay. It's fine as long as none of the known characters from the screen are depicted. The chap in the top right hand corner there, for example, is Luke Skywalker. But apart from that, the artwork's fine. I love this one so much, I had to read the rest that I don't have online. Booktastic. So yes, I then read book 2 online, titled Rescues, and as the name suggests, the survivors of book 1 go on to try and rescue people in book 2, hence the name. More brilliant stuff, the artwork was consistent, though I did find the intrigue a little lopsided. We had the Jedi in training Finn, yes, Disney even still the names as well, whose story was almost run-of-the-mill. We've seen Jedi in training stories before, and there's nothing particularly new here, apart from the fact that the Yuuzhan Vong running around. However, Kay, his sister's story, is far more interesting, as her and her mother get up to all sorts of mischief. So because of the imbalance there, it wasn't quite as good as book 1, but I'd still buy it, if at all possible. And then book 3, Revelations. In Revelations, certain secrets are revealed, surprisingly enough. Some were revealed to the reader in book 2, but then other characters in the stories find out these truths as well, along with some other ones as well. More fantastic action, great set pieces. Favourite character by far is Kay, who's literally killing it. She has one absolutely awesome scene, which is then not really explained. I might as well tell you, she literally rips the head off a stormtrooper, as you do. But there's no explanation as to how she could have done that. I get the feeling that there was more planned in the series, but once again, because of the Disney buyout, I fear that anything else that we would have got ended up just not happening. So the story does end rather abruptly. Yes, there's the new Jedi Order book series to go through. However, none of that follows this family, as this is its own little standalone story. Which is a real shame, because I think there could have been a lot more told in this series here. But I still think it's booktastic. Now, like I say, the artwork is consistent throughout all 3 stories, but want more, and there is none, which is very disappointing. And then I actually read a book, An Orc on the Wild Side by Tom Holt. This is my book of the month, and I've done a video on this already. I literally read this within the first 5 days of the month, and I'll leave a link to that video down below so you can find out what I thought of this. And then I read Star Wars Droids Season of Revolt. I picked this one up quite recently. It's a box tree publication, so I had bated breath for it. However, I was quite surprised by this one. The artwork is pretty good for a box tree. Nice bright colours, you can clearly see what's going on. And the story is not quite so basic as they normally are. In this one, a special spice or seasoning has been developed, which makes food taste not just great, but puts the taster into a permanent state of bliss. A concept we've seen elsewhere, like in Serenity and in the Doctor Who episode Gridlock. But in this case, there's 2 warring factions, both wanting possession of this particular seasoning, so they can control the galaxy in their own particular way, and R2-D2 and C-3PO are stuck in the middle of it. Very competently told. I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. Although there is a weird couple of panels where this chap here is inexplicably coloured in a greeny blue colour. For this time he's got a normal skin tone colour, and that's an obvious misprint there. So a lot of fun, worth reading. And then I read Star Wars Chewbacca. In the proper non-Disney version of Star Wars, Chewbacca dies. And this volume sees R2-D2 and C-3PO go around and visit the various people and relatives and enemies of Chewbacca and get their stories and accounts of this great walking carpet. It's all written by one person, but each account is drawn by a different collection of artists, so you get a nice change of feels and emotions throughout the book. And essentially it's a collection of the life and times of Chewie, from his early days on Kashyyyk, his home planet, his run-in with slavers, his rescue by Han Solo, various adventures with the Rebellion, and the further adventures looking after Han and Leia's children. For about 80% of this book is absolutely fine. However, the last two stories are absolute killers, as the droids interview Luke and then Han. And I'm a mess after Han's story, I can tell you. A wonderful memorial to one of the more inarticulate of Star Wars characters. He didn't even get a medal at the end of episode 4. And this volume's even more poignant because it has a foreword by Peter Mayhew, the man who wore the Chewbacca outfit on and off for the last 40 years. Really quite beautiful, booktastic. And then I read Star Wars Infinities, A New Hope. The Infinities range are the non-canonical What If range of stories, and in this case it asks the question, what if Luke's proton torpedoes don't destroy the Death Star? He runs down the trench, he fires them, they go down the exhaust vent, but they don't do what they're supposed to do. A mechanical malfunction means they explode a bit too early. Gives the Death Star pause enough for the Rebel Alliance to escape mostly, but the thing is still up and running. So this story fast forwards through the first film up until that fateful moment, and then plays out a possible future with the Death Star still in it. I must say, I absolutely love this one. In fact, I almost prefer it to the actual films. I know, shocking. So many great ideas in here. A real epic finale. We see a lot of the characters we know and love from the original trilogy, but in different places, doing different things, and with different chances of survival. And one awesome scene, for example, is when Luke goes into the cave on Dagobah, fights Darth Vader, and finds that he's fighting his sister. Really neat ideas. I had a lot of fun with this one. Booktastic. And after that, I read Star Wars Infinities, The Empire Strikes Back. And so this is a completely separate story to the last one I just showed you. So it assumes that everything went fine in the first film, the Death Star blew up and all that. The Rebellion then relocates to Hoth, like they do in the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back. Luke is then attacked by the Wampa, escapes from the cave, and then dies in the snow. And so with Luke dead and his dying words to Han Solo being about going to Dagobah, the story takes a very different direction than in the original take. Again, some great ideas, a very different playthrough of events. However, this one was slightly disappointing at the end because it didn't really wrap up the story like the first one did. This one really is just the retelling of The Empire Strikes Back, not of the trilogy itself. And so it's left with more to do, but having taken a very different route to get to that point. Really good though. The artwork was okay, nice coloration, clearly depicting what's supposed to be going on. Buy it. I haven't got the Infinities of Return of the Jedi, but I have got that on my e-reader, so I'm trying to get through that one. But in the physical realm, I then finished Star Wars Tales Volume 1. This is a collection of all the Star Wars Tales comics, which are a series of short stories in and around the original 2 trilogies. This is all pre-Disney, where some of the stories can fit quite happily into the canon, where others are more of the Infinities variety, where you just have silly little adventures featuring some popular characters, but in a situation you know they couldn't have been in the first place. But they're a lot of fun. Like with any short story collection, told by a variety of authors, illustrators, some of the stories are quite lengthy, others are much shorter, only a couple of pages or so, and they also incorporate a lot of the expanded universe as well. So the first story, for example, sees Darth Vader hunting down the Dark Woman, and that's called Extinction. And then there's the story of Qui-Gon Jinn with his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi, as he attempts to impart the meaning of the living force to his apprentice, and that's life, death, and the living force. And then it's Skippy the Jedi Droid, which is a fun twist on R5D4, the red droid that blows itself up when the lasers by it and C-3PO instead of R2-D2. Now, this droid's got a very bad motivator look. Anyway, it tells the story of that droid and how it's a Jedi, because he's got lots of midi-chlorians in its oil. Then there's a Mara Jade story, Mara Jade, A Night on the Town. When in a similar vein to Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand, she's on a mission to do a thing, and we just follow her as she goes about this particular mission. And I feel that one fits very nicely into her story. Routine is more of a joke, which sees an Imperial patrol stopping a notorious smuggler by the name of Han Solo, but not being able to find him out on anything, no matter how much they investigate his ship. cleverly done with a good punchline at the end, and based before the first film. And then it's Incident at Horn Station, which sees a lone traveller arriving at a backwater place run by thugs. Very much a man with no name type story. This one's a bit different in that it doesn't feature any of the known characters or places, and would happily fit somewhere in the old Republic era. Or the New Republic era, actually. Then it's Max Rebo and his Jizz Whalers in that Stop That Jawa, a very cartoony, silly adventure which features the musicians from Jabba's palace, whose musical instruments get stolen. And then it's The Death of Captain Tarpals, which sees the exile of Jar Jar Binks and how he came to be where he was discovered by Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, I know Jar Jar Binks has his detractors, there are some that like him, but this one does make him a lot more of a sympathetic character, I thought anyway, and makes quite a nice little prequel to Episode 1. And then it's Deal with a Demon, which sees our favourite bad boy Vili, the Deveronian mercenary Vilmar Garruk, who's hired by a royal family to spirit away their daughter, who's under threat of assassination. A predominant character during the Clone Wars graphic novels, usually seen working with or against Quinlan Vos. Here he gets his own story, and it's a lot of fun. And there's no reason why this one can't be canon. And then it's Lady Luck, which basically chronicles how Lando Calrissian won the Cloud City on Bespin. So a nice prequel to Episode 5 there. And a lot of fun too. And then it's Three Against the Galaxy, which follows a Gamorrean guard after the death of Jabba the Hutt, who falls on hard times, but ends up teaming up with two other characters to stop a bad person doing bad stuff and saving some people from this bad stuff. So another story with none of the main characters from the films in it, but a really nice little adventure featuring other people, other things. Really enjoyed that one. Moment of Doubt is next, and that could conceivably happen during The Empire Strikes Back, when Darth Vader calls all the bounty hunters to try and find Han Solo and Leia Organa. After the one depicted on screen, he then gets a latecomer who is actually more intent on the destruction of Darth Vader. And so there's quite a decent showdown between a very powerful force taken by surprise. Also nice and violent. This was quite good at showing that Darth Vader wasn't totally just indestructible all the time. He did have vulnerabilities, so I enjoyed that one. And that's one of my favourite from the book, A Star Is Born. Filled with loads of anachronisms. Hilariously enough, all the Empire symbols have Mickey Mouse ears on them, and of course this was done way before they knew about that happening, so foreshadowing there, which is quite funny. But sees Death Star designer Bevel Lemelisk meeting up with the Emperor, who's looked over the plans and wants to know why the exhaust port for the ventilator shaft being so freaking big, amongst other things. Really, really silly, huge amounts of fun, where nearly every panel has something in it that you can look at and say, actually, that's not Star Wars, that's not supposed to be there, but it's silly, it's funny, it's highly entertaining. And then it's a droid's adventure, Spare Parts, as they're captured by the Jawas, attempt to escape and get captured again. Could conceivably happen during A New Hope, but I'd say pretty unlikely. But a lot of fun anyway. And then finally there's Sandblasted, where an Imperial war droid crash lands on a planet, nearly obliterating a bunch of three thugs who initially see the crash as an opportunity to get loads of money, but when the droid wakes up they find themselves in a world of pain. Really exciting and with some fun ideas. Absolutely top-notch stories in here. The whole collection is excellent, booktastic. And today I just finished book 2. Star Wars Tales Volume 2. How do they come up with these names? So again, more writers, more illustrators, some from the first book, some new ones. Kicks off with Yaddle's Tale, the one below, where we learn a little bit more about the Yoda-like creature that isn't Yoda, and namely what she did to earn the right to be on the Jedi Council. Quite a nice little story about a very unknown about character, and I appreciate the continuity where the other members of the Jedi Council are who they are supposed to be at that time. And then it's a silly story called What They Called Me, about a rich idiot who goes camping on Endor and is basically a buffoon. Probably my least favourite of the bunch. The artwork is very cartoony. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the story itself wasn't great. A Summer's Dream is next, and that follows a lovesick boy on Naboo who falls in love with a very young queen-to-be, Padme Amidala. So it's a love story of sorts, but when she takes up her queenly state, the whole thing's off. And so the story doesn't really go anywhere, but it does show just what Padme gave up to do what she did, and why she was reluctant to give in to her feelings for Anakin later on. And then there's a very, very short story called Hoth, which sees a Wampa hunting Tauntauns, but accidentally catches an Imperial probe droid. Next up is Lando's Commandos, where Lando Calrissian is ordered by the Republic to collect a squad of mercenaries and other expendable types to fly into a debris field to do a thing. And this is the story of that all happening. Quite snazzy artwork, and a tale of action and betrayal. but then it's Star Wars, what do you expect? Then there's a hovel on Turk Street, which sees the bounty hunter Greedo, the one who Han Solo kills in the cantina, take on a job which is inevitably far more than it is let out to be. Quite a fun one, and it's nice seeing some of these small characters in the films get a little bit more in the background in stories like this. Then it's the Max Rebo Band again in A Hot Time in a Cold Town Tonight, where Jabba sends his band to a rival to play, but the band quickly cottoned on to the fact that this is going to be a one-way trip. A little bit of fun, a nice little adventure there. And then it's Fortune, Fate and the Natural History of the Sarlacc. Now chances are if you Google Sarlacc you'll find some pictures from this particular story, as they're beautifully illustrated and show the life cycle of the Sarlacc, the great big beastie which Jabba the Hutt likes to throw people in. And the story's worth it just for that. But there's also a slight plot in there as well, which is more of a joke, but it's quite fun. And it's the droids again in Junk Heap Hero, whereby being the rebellion droids, they're targeted by some ne'er-do-wells, but Luke uses some handy drunk droid parts to save the day. And of course C-3PO gets the wrong end of the stick and gets all confused. And then it's the Hidden, which has another very unusual art style to it. Also largely silent in that there's very little text, which is a probe droid landing on Dagobah and finding Yoda. A very interesting look to the story, particularly because we've gone to Dagobah itself. Thank the Maker does a beautiful job of tying in the prequel trilogy to the original trilogy, set on Cloud City in The Empire Strikes Back, where Darth Vader is presented with a box which comprising of the component parts of the recently blasted C-3PO. And when he's holding C-3PO's head, we then flash back to a young Anakin Skywalker finding a scrap head in a junk pile, thinking, I could build this. A beautiful story that could happily fit behind the scenes in The Empire Strikes Back. And then it's Single Cell, which sees some beautiful artwork by Jan Duursema, again featuring some characters we don't know or seen before, but a good story nonetheless. We get a nice background about the characters and a good punchline. And then it's Nerf Herder on Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, where Leia calls Han a stuck-up, no-good, scruffy-looking Nerf Herder. In this one we meet a Nerf Herder and find out what Nerfs are and how you herd them, but he also gets up to some other mischief as well. A fun little story. Again, no characters we know, so it could be canonical in that it's just going on somewhere else while stuff's going on, or not. A lot of fun and fits nicely with the rest of the stories. And then it's Jedi Chief or Pizza Hut, set before Phantom Menace, but I don't consider this one canonical in that this one sees a Jedi Master in an Iron Chef contest against a chef droid. This one's very much done for laughs and fans of that particular cookery programme. I enjoyed it though. And then we have Boba Fett in Outbid but Never Outgunned, which sees that notorious bounty hunter up to his old tricks, this time tracking down a particular thing. This was set 10 or 20 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. And for those who don't know, yes, he does survive the falling down the Sarlacc incident. And yeah, it has a quite nice touching ending to it. Gives a bit more story behind the man. And then it's another brilliant one, False Fiction. This is another anachronistic one, where there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that shouldn't be here, like Buzz Lightyear, for example, the Beatles, amongst other things. Not really, just sort of look in the pictures and see what you can find. But this one sees Yoda and Mace Windu in a diner, talking over the fate of Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber. Rob is then burst into the place in a style not too dissimilar to the beginning of Pulp Fiction. I'll go on at Samuel L. Jackson's character here. Of course it's going to be huge amounts of fun. Absolutely loved it. Captain 3PO is unsurprisingly another droid story, and in this one, C-3PO and R2-D2 on a ship that is no survivors on it, under attack by pirates, and R2-D2 uploads C-3PO with Captain Antilles' strategies. Not something we've seen in any of the films, and so I'm not going to go with that one, but quite fun as a story. The one that got away has another interesting art style, very simplistic and basic this time, which follows the Twi'lek slave dancer girl before the one we see get eaten by the Rancor. She gets replaced by Ula, who gets eaten, and goes on to do other better things. The Secret of Luke's Hand sees Han Solo comforting his younger son Anakin, who can't sleep, because he's fretting about what's happened to Luke's hand and why did he wear a glove. What follows is a Star Wars trilogy retelling, but this time with Luke's missing hand as the hero, finally facing off against the Emperor's foot. Of course, as this is all a dad telling his son a silly story, this could technically be canonical, but it is very silly. And Death Star Pirates, another art style choice here, which sees the Millennium Falcon beset by pirates. Pretty run-of-the-mill story, I would say, but it's alright. The artwork does help it stand out a lot. I'm not saying I like it particularly, but it's noticeably different to everything else. And then finally it's Bad Business with Phil Mark Garrick, the Deveronian mercenary, taking on more than he can handle with an unknown passenger and 3 pit joys, courtesy of Watto. An enjoyable story, and Villy is always a lot of fun. And the whole thing? Booktastic. Yeah, there are a couple of ones in there, but they're quite short, and the good ones far outweighed them. So that was it, 10 titles there, and we're only on the 15th. Hopefully I manage some actual books by the end of the month. I'm working my way through a very thick book of short stories at the moment. Nearly there. Last 100 pages to go. So what do you think of those? Have you read any of them? Did you enjoy them or not? Or have you found your reading habits have changed with this interesting lockdown going on? So thoughts below, please. But as usual, if you have nothing nice to say, then please keep it to yourself. Thank you, and until next time, see you later.